Hi, I hope anyone watching this is having an excellent day. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is I will just be giving my view on socialism being a good thing, beneficial for society, and the fact that it can work. So I'm just going to explain why, and for me specifically, I believe in democratic socialism, which is a specific type of socialism, which I will explain in a bit. So the first thing you need to consider when you're thinking about this is what do people need in a society? What do people want? Which is just a very basic question. What do people need and want to get by in a society? Well, they need things like food, water, shelter, um, clothing, and all that stuff for their family as well. If they're providing for a family, just list goes on. Toiletries, blah 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 blah, blah, car. I don't know, just like well, I said house, but everything. And then also, what do they want? Um, Maybe they want to be able to go somewhere nice. Maybe they want a nice environment. They want to be able to see their family. They want to be able to travel easily. They just want freedom. They want time. They want space. Um, just you can have to go thinking of all the things that are beneficial to people. Now this may seem like a very simple question, but it's good to start off with the basics. So now you think about, well, how do people get these things? Well, in a modern society, basically the answer is money. I mean, people say that money doesn't matter, but like I think realistically we know that isn't true. We we go out and work to get money so that we can basically get everything else in our life. Money uh, now basically unlocks everything. It buys your food, buys your water, buys your shelter, etc., etc., etc. Most things that most things that you need and want, sadly, are accessed via earning money. So really, a lot of the things that, well, again, most of the things that you may have thought of in terms of what people need and want to get on and live their life well in society, can be simplified just to money. That's it, just one thing. A hell of a lot of people's freedom and over their own lives or over society and their ability to control and live a happy life is all based on, sadly, how much money they have. So, really, you're only talking about one factor, then, aren't you? If you give people more money, or more specifically, more wealth, because I guess, inflation and stuff. But if you give people more wealth, they will almost always have more control over their life and more happiness. So how would you go about doing that? Well, one very good way would be to raise wages, because I mean the majority of people work a waged or salaried job. So if you found a way to raise wages, you'd take care of quite a big chunk of the problem, because that's most people, and you've just taken care of them. So one step further, how would you raise wages? Well, you could legislate it. That's a good idea. But the thing is, voting people in to legislate things can get very messy when you consider people who lie, um, people who don't have a good stake in the media. A lot of people who genuinely want change don't have a foot in the door of the establishment. And I mean, just it hasn't happened, has it? Politicians don't raise wages. It just hasn't happened really. I could sort of try and explain, the mechanisms of why this doesn't happen, but I guess I don't have to. It just doesn't happen. We can see it doesn't. So that's sort of that's not it's not a blocked off route, but it's a route that isn't working right now. Just the only thing you can do is just electing people who you hope, when they get into government, will raise wages. And also, you could do that in tandem with something else, and that something else is the important thing: unionization. If workers unionize in a workplace, then I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'm just explaining it. I don't. I don't want to seem like a bit, what's it called? What's the word? I don't seem patronizing here, but it is pretty simple to me. So a lot of stuff I talk through is going to seem simple because I just think it's a simple thought process to get to the idea that socialism is good. I'm sorry, but like that's just what I think. So if workers in a workplace are unionized, if there's some sort of problem with the boss, or well, more likely the boss is, um, then obviously they can strike. If it gets that far, if it gets out of hand, they can strike, and obviously, um, um, chances are that business will go under if everyone strikes for long enough and the strike doesn't break. Now, obviously, with that threat in mind, it's in the boss's interest to keep the workers on side. So obviously, the boss is more inclined to submit to demands of the workers. And the thing is, so imagine if there was a big movement to unionize across the whole country, or maybe even the world, doesn't really matter. So if there was, say one country, say the UK, if there was a big movement to unionize across the whole UK, that's great. Say the majority of workplaces are strongly unionized. There's a strong union, and the workers are committed to striking if they need to. They've got good funds to keep them going, keep them eating if they do go on strike. So imagine in 10 years, England is strongly unionized. Would you oppose that? Because I don't know who's going to be watching this in like all of time, so I don't know how many people are going to watch this, but just whoever you are watching this, would you oppose that? Because that's not socialism. I'm not telling you that's socialism. But if you're not a socialist and you're watching this to see like, oh, what's it all about? Let's see if you can convince me. Just first off, would you like strong unionization so the people can get what they want? I think, and I hope you'd say yes to that. So let me propose something to you. Democratic socialism can be, this is a valid form of socialism. It's very broad. There are many forms of socialism, but a valid form of socialism is practically the same as strong unionization. Because think about it, the core element of socialism is public ownership of the means of production, which means of production just means like businesses, basically. Things that produce stuff or provide a service. So if that's ownership of the means of production, what's the difference between ownership of the means of production and control? If a country is strongly unionized, if the large majority of businesses have a strong union, then the workers already control the means of production. They just don't officially own them. So really, if you were to take that country that you may agree with, I think that's a good situation. If you were to just take that country and pass legislation to make it official, to say, okay, now instead of controlling this business, you control it and you officially own it as well, and you just gave the employees a equal share of the business, or you worked out some other system to democratize the ownership of the business. The specifics depends on your taste, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. So if you officialized it by actually seizing the means of production, it's a very popular phrase, and distributing it among the workers who work there, how would that really be any different? Like in terms of the large scale effects, because I guess you could say like, oh, it's bad because you'd be stealing from the boss, but I don't mean different in terms of just morality. I mean like economic situation. It's like, how would that leave the country different? How would that harm that country? Generally, the society that happened in would be economically like sort of the same, because before the businesses were already being controlled by the workers. Now the workers just officially own it. So it's just the icing on the cake. And that's socialism. Socialism is one step further than strong unionization. That's it. It's just unionization plus. It's strong unions, but instead you just go one step further and say, okay, we don't just control the means of production, we own it. The control now can't be taken away from us again, and that's legally enforceable. That's all that is. Now, obviously, there are several forms of socialism. Not all of them are that moderate. There's communism, which is a form of socialism, but people get very sketchy. There's a lot of debate about what is and isn't communism in the umbrella term of socialism, but what I've just described to you is a form of socialism called democratic socialism. That's it. So, basically, in summary, if you support unions, you support strong unionization, you should support socialism. And one thing, see what. Okay, yeah. I've written down a possible response to this, which would be, okay, a problem is if workplaces get unionized, then there's a possibility of businesses leaving the country and taking their custom elsewhere because they can exploit the workers more, like what happens with China, where businesses go to China, which isn't a socialist country, by the way, because the public don't own the businesses, so it's not socialist. Businesses will pack off to China, where they can exploit the workers and get cheaper labor. So if you had a country where all the workers were demanding high wages, then you think, oh, maybe the businesses all just leave. Well, the thing is, it would require a certain amount of economic isolationism. It would require a lot of. It would require high tariffs on exports from cheaper countries in order to keep domestically produced goods competitive. But that is very realistic. There's a solution right there. So businesses wouldn't move away because it is in businesses' interests to stay in the UK because they know they're covered. They're covered because they can still sell their product cheaper than a company based in China. Because if you put tariffs, which are like rates, like basically a fee to come into a country, a fee for those goods to come from China to the UK. Once that's added on, it's very likely that the goods produced in the UK, even though produced under socialism with higher wages, therefore they're more expensive to make, those products are still likely to be more profitable. So that's why businesses would stay, more businesses would stay in the country and not take their business elsewhere if you also increase tariffs on imports. So yeah, if whoever sees this, if you are a capitalist and you disagree, just like reply and just say why. I'll be happy to talk to you. Everyone else, well, I mean, everyone in general. I hope that wasn't too rambling and long. It was 13 minutes, but I don't know, that's just how I speak. I hope you enjoyed it at least a little bit. I know you wouldn't enjoy it a lot. It wasn't a roller coaster ride, but I hope you enjoyed it a little bit. Hope you have a very good day. See ya.